That's exactly right. We are so fortunate to have such important companies who want to partner with the arts. You know, we talk to the CEOs and all of the employees who understand the value of the arts for living in a community. The CEOs of these companies want the arts because when they're bringing in people for the jobs, they want a place where they can lure people to live a vibrant and healthy life, and there are things to do all the time. And they realize that by supporting the arts, we continue to make that happen.
I am joined now by ArtsWave's VP, is it VP of Community Impact? VP of Community Impact, Ray Gargano is joining us. You are not the only voice in the room when it comes to the grants that ArtsWave makes and the money that gets doled out, but I think you're a big player in the process.
Well, I think I manage the process, but it's really an open forum for the community to participate in it so that people that we raise the money from get an opportunity to be part of the voice of how we distribute the money.
So you work for ArtsWave is the longest running, the largest, United Arts nonprofit fundraiser in the country.
Right.
Does that bring with it any sense of pressure to what you're doing day to day?
Well, I think it's an honor that it has survived so long in Cincinnati, and we have the support of the community. The 100-year tradition of ArtsWave and what we've been doing is amazing. But if you compare us to other cities, we're one of the few cities that have no governmental support, and there's not an Office of Arts and Culture through the city or the county that donates that money because of, it's almost a double-edged sword. We have that 100-year tradition of the community supporting the arts, that we don't have that government support. So it's more of a responsibility that we have for all of the arts organizations and for the community in general. Yeah,
you mentioned double-edged sword. Is there a sense of, because ArtsWave has been going for 100 years and because it's so ingrained in this city culturally, is there a sense that maybe people tend to take it for granted sometimes?
I don't know if people take us for granted, but I'm not sure everyone understands our process and that we raise the money that's available out there and it goes directly into the arts organizations. As costs rise, we need more money. As the temperature for philanthropy in our community might not be as strong as it used to be. We're not raising the same amount, proportionately. So we need to continue to talk about our message and figure out how that all works together.
And you're juggling, there's a lot of different sort of avenues that ArtsWave is working with. There's a lot of plates that are being spun. There's certainly the grassroots outreach that's going on, but then you guys also have a number of corporate sponsors and working with all the businesses here in this city. Like I said in the last segment, that's one of my favorite things to talk about is the way this city and the companies in it step up and are a part of a bunch of different festivals and arts programming and all sorts of things that affect life in this town.
That's exactly right. We are so fortunate to have such important companies who want to partner with the arts. We talk to the CEOs and all of the employees who understand the value of the arts for living in a community. The CEOs of these companies want the arts because when they're bringing in people for the jobs, they want a place where they can lure people to live a vibrant and healthy life, and there are things to do all the time. And they realize that by supporting the arts, we continue to make that happen.
So does that seem weird to you then, that there aren't more cities that copy the model here?
I think we are very fortunate that we have it, and I've been to other cities. I've lived in other cities that don't have it. There is a love for the arts all over the country, most definitely. But I really think that it's a tradition here that's lasted for 100 years, or even longer than 100 years, definitely. But the community is so proud of the arts, so proud. If you just drive around, when I was moving here, one of my colleagues took me on a tour around the city and showed me all of the different buildings, the arts buildings and venues. And I'm like, there is no other city that has invested this much money in individual arts institutions. And now that I'm living here for just over 5 years, I see that. I see that pride in people. I see how people want to support it and want to continue to see that growth happening. So many of the examples you gave in the opening, the Emory Theater just opened. That was the original home of the Children's Theater. It had been quite a few different things. It sat empty for so many years, and the people wanted to bring it back home, and they wanted to have the best children's theater that a city could offer. And, you know, that kind of investment in other cities, especially for youth and for children's theater, is not always where a priority is. So we're very lucky.
Well, and, you know, talking about going around and pointing out all the different arts, you know, affiliated buildings in the city, at that same point, the number of places you can go around and see the ArtsWave logo as a part of decorations or banners. I was just walking around the corner the other day. SCPA is right around the corner here from us, and they've got a banner advertising some local school theater productions that are coming up, and I saw right on there's the ArtsWave banner. You guys fuel so many different programs around this city.
We do, and we're so happy to open our arms to as many organizations and groups that we can, most definitely. We do that. We have our Sustaining Impact grants that you talked about, but we do have multiple project grants too for individual schools or other organizations in the arts who are not in that cohort of Sustaining Impact to apply for project grants.
Yeah, so speaking of the Sustaining Impact grant, we've got the list right here. So this is, about maybe 4 dozen organizations that got money this year, and we mentioned what the Sustaining Impact grant was. This is multi-year funding to really help stabilize a given organization. This is giving them legs. It's not just a quick injection.
Well, sort of. There's a little nuance to that. It is general operating support, so it's unrestricted. So this is the things that they say aren't sexy to raise money for, so they can pay for their rent, they can pay for the lights, they can pay for salaries out of this, which a lot of foundations, you know, aren't keen on. They want to see shiny projects. So I think that's one of the benefits of Sustaining Impact. That the term Sustaining Impact, the impact is really part of the important element of our grant making. You know, because of this 100-year tradition and the economic study, we still continue to talk about that, but that's not the main focus in Cincinnati. We know that there's economic vitality because of the arts, and some of those statistics that you showed prove that. And I think the community believes in that, and that's why they donate to us. But about 10 years ago, we started a social impact movement, and all of our grant making is based on our Blueprint for Collective Action, which are 5 social impact goals, because we know that the arts aren't just about entertainment. It changes the community. It makes us more connected. It makes our neighborhoods more vibrant, right? It builds bridges across communities so people feel welcome in different spaces. Youth, right? It creates a healthy lifestyle and a motivating workday for the students to go to school. So even though it's sustaining impact, it's not necessarily to sustain the organizations. In our cohort for Sustaining Impact, we like to say that those organizations are already healthy and they're sustaining themselves. What we do is help them supplement that so they can really focus on that community impact. Right. So those 5 goals. Yeah,
and you know, you mentioned like little kids and stuff. I love the quote from that guy at the fitness center in the beginning of that one video talking about how when you're a little kid and you're first going to school, you're not starting out with trigonometry or writing an essay. You get crayons and you're drawing, and that's just as much important learning as anything else.
Absolutely. You know, there are so many academic benefits that have been proven for years and years of studies about the arts and education, but especially post-COVID, where relationships were lost, students didn't know how to act socially again. The arts really work on those social-emotional skills for kids. They teach them how to interact, how to put themselves in other people's shoes, how to be empathetic, and really just to be better humans, right? We're not trying to always make the next Broadway star or the next Picasso, but we want to make good people.
Well, and how to communicate, just being able to hear somebody else telling a story and you telling your own story. I can get philosophical about the arts forever. But, you know, we've got the list here of the Sustaining Impact Grant recipients, and I'm just, you know, there's so many, staples of this community that are on here. Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, Cincinnati Opera, Cincinnati Landmark Productions, which is a favorite of mine out there on the west side, the Youth Choir, the Kennedy Heights Arts Center. It's big and small. Are there any organizations on this list from this year's impact grants that really stood out to you in the process of when they were being distributed?
Yeah, absolutely. On the West End, Q Kids Dance Company came in this year for the first year, so they'll be receiving the same funding for the next 3 years, so they can do a little more planning. But their story is so amazing. It's Kwesi started the organization 44 years ago, and it's been sort of a mom and pop shop, just the mom shop, I guess. And whenever something needed to happen, she would pull it out of her pocket, right? If a kid needed a new shirt or a dance costume, she would pull it out of her own pocket. And now they're realizing, hey, we want to sustain this organization for the future because it does have such impact in the neighborhood. Her 2 daughters are now working with her, and she's ready to retire, and she's like, girls, we want you to take over that organization. And they're like, well, we need a paycheck too. So this is just one of their ways of, they demonstrate that social impact every day in their work, and now this is a way for them to formalize it and secure a future for the organization.
And those things you just described there, what they're demonstrating, that's part of the application for this grant, right? You're filling out forms and describing what you do and the impact that you have, whether you were talking quantitatively or, in this case, with a lot of arts programs, qualitatively.
Absolutely. You know, the money doesn't come for free. We do collect a lot of data from these organizations, and we ask them to look at those 5 social impact goals and set goals every year so that we can track some of that and really talk to the community about the changes we're seeing.
Yeah. Getting ready for the centennial. We're talking 100 years now for ArtsWave. Yes. Does that put more pressure because you really want to make a big splash on that 100 years?
Yeah, I think we're just so proud of the work we're doing and proud of the people who have come before us. We want to show up and show up great. Our theme is Make Your Mark, and that really starts with us. We want to make our mark on the campaign, ArtsWave in Cincinnati, but we're asking the community to make their mark as well.
Yeah, that's got to be part of the pitch when you're working with all these big companies that are heavily involved in the cultural aspects of this city. Hey guys, it's coming up to the 100 years. We really want to make a big impact on this go. Let's crack open the checkbook a little bit wider.
Absolutely. We're so successful in Cincinnati, including when we compare ourselves to other United Arts, because we have that 100-year history, and we have those donations that have built that endowment that we've had. And to make it for the next 100 years, we need to continue that endowment building, and we need to set up the next 100 years so all of the organizations can survive and thrive as well.
Yeah, I feel like you guys do there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of, like I said, so different plates that you're spinning between the corporate support and keeping the message out to people, the grassroots support. How much government interaction do you guys have as far as like the feds getting involved?
Yeah, so things have changed recently, and we've really had to look at what the investment is that we have. We've always supported local, so we raise our money locally and then we distribute it locally.
Because that's where the impact is anyway.
Exactly. ArtsWave, about 5 years ago when I got here, we were designated as the official local arts agency for our region, and that means that we can get federal dollars. And we have applied year over year for the National Endowment for the Arts. So we received some of that funding. But if you think about the National Endowment for the Arts, they have just a few $1 million for the entire country.
Sure.
So, and as ArtsWave, we want to make sure that the organizations we support have that edge, so we don't compete with that, raising that same money.
Yeah, well, and again, you've got such strong local ties and grassroots connection and motivation that we're building from the ground up versus from the top down.
Exactly.
Ray Gargano is the Vice President of Community Impact for ArtsWave, a great nonprofit here in this city doing a lot of great work, fueling a lot of other programs. We got more with Ray coming up after the break. Welcome back to The Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. I am joined by Ray Gargano, the Vice President of Community Impact for ArtsWave, the nonprofit in town for fueling arts programs all throughout the region. Ray, you've been doing this for a number of years with ArtsWave specifically, but you've got like 20 years of arts fundraising experience. Is that what you went to school for specifically?
I didn't. I started in education, so I was a high school English theater teacher, all of that in Northeastern Ohio. And then when I transitioned from the classroom, I went to Playhouse Square in Cleveland, working in the arts education department. And it took me a while to find my way into philanthropy.
Yeah. What was the motivation to maybe move out of teaching and education, which is a little bit philanthropy in its own way, into maybe capital P philanthropy?
Sure. Well, teaching is the hardest job in the world, and I did it for about 10 years, and I think anyone in the education profession who can last longer than that, God love them. But I just also knew that I wanted more for myself too, and I wanted to explore different things. I've tapped out of giving everything I had to the kids after 10 years, so I needed to refresh myself too. So I knew I would always be in education some sort of way. So when I got to take my education background into the arts, especially at the Performing Arts Center, and create more educational opportunities for more students, it seemed like a win-win situation.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I looked up your resume a little bit as far as different places where you've worked, and I know there's a little bit of you've been traveling a lot over these 20-odd years. It was Cleveland doing Playhouse Square, and then did you go like to California after that?
I went to Florida first.
Florida.
My brother and sister lived there, so I wanted to, get closer to family and worked there for a little while. Then I got offered a job in Madison, Wisconsin, eventually, doing the same arts education work in performing arts centers. And then I moved out to California. Quick little story. I went to the Santa Rosa Luther Burbank Center to start an education department there. And about 6 months after I got there, one of the huge fires came through. So I got to experience life, which I didn't think I would. But what you see on TV, that just panic of the fires and how it changes a community and changes life, it was really true. So, my rent went from $2,000 for a one-bedroom to $5,000. And I got an opportunity in the city of Sacramento in doing arts education for that. When I got there, it was a city job. It was the Office of Arts and Culture within the city, and I had been bumped from my position because that's how the union worked there. And they said, that position's been filled, even though I was offered the job.
Yeah.
And they said, but we have a grant-making position available.
Okay.
And I said, well, I didn't know anything about grant-making. And they said, you'll learn. So I did very much so. And it's so connected to the work. I have been years and years asking for money, so now I got to be on the other side of that. And I think it gives me a great perspective when we're running the system of grant-making.
Interesting. What did you notice? What have you learned in places like being in Florida and being in Madison and then Sacramento and now coming back here as far as, are there things that you learned about the way those communities handle arts funding, arts programming, arts education that figures into the way that you do things here?
Yeah, it's really where the money is. That's a lot of it, and how the community supports the arts. I was in Orlando, in Orange County, Florida, and Disney is there. So there was a lot of money flowing, right? And so there was a lot of experimentation. The restrictions were a little bit different from how we treat it now. In Sacramento, it was part of the city government, so funding was very much limited, and it was always making the argument we were talking about earlier about there are so much social service needs in the community. How do we put money toward the arts? So it was always making that argument about the arts are more than just entertainment. And not all of these cities have that 100-year history like we do. So it was constantly defending the economic impact and that social impact to get those dollars raised. And then there is always the need, no matter where you go. And I think the leadership in each community makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, because whoever's at the helm is going to set the priority on things. I think that you were also in a pretty unique situation as far as from an arts perspective, being in, were you in Sacramento when COVID hit, right? And then all of a sudden funding for so many things, whether or not they had the ability to even be executed, but the funding itself started drying up. From your perspective, what was that all like?
Absolutely. We were fortunate as a country that we received a lot of federal dollars at that time, but not everyone was staffed for it. So I was the lone grant maker in Sacramento, and my annual budget was about $1.5 million. And when COVID hit, we got $20 million allocated just to the arts. So then we had to figure out an entire system. How do we track this? How do we make sure that it's equitable? How do we make sure that our community in the arts survives and thrives through this process? And it was challenging. And I will say, working as part of a government system, there's the bureaucracy argument is very true, right? It took a lot of time to figure out how to make all of that work and all of the steps to get that money out. So even though it was very generous to get $20 million, it was a challenge getting it out quickly to the people who needed it.
Yeah, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And then also specifically that money is for use in the moment. It's not like that's money you're supposed to be able to sock away for long-term planning or savings or anything like that. That's to keep things going right now.
Very true. I mean, looking back in hindsight, I think it was a great plan to keep people getting paid, keeping them surviving, living their everyday lives. I made the transition here right in the middle of COVID, so it was the CARES Act dollars that we got in Sacramento, and I came here right when the ARPA funds were coming through.
Okay.
And that was really about how do we restart our communities, right? Those dollars could be used for planning over the next few years. So we were very fortunate to get those dollars again through the county here and through the city, and because ArtsWave has that relationship with the government, local government, we have the background in making all of these systems happen. We were able to receive those dollars and get those out very quickly because we didn't have all of the bureaucracy and we had a system already in place to make it happen, a system that people trust.
What do you see? The system that people trust, I think, is huge. What do you see as maybe the biggest challenge going forward with now that we're, past the COVID stuff and trying to drum up arts funding? Certainly the relationships that ArtsWave has with the corporate community here in this city is really big. What do you see as far as headwinds or challenges, not just for the 100-year anniversary that ArtsWave has coming up, but just trying to keep the funding flowing?
Yeah. Well, I think you probably noticed that society has changed a little bit since COVID and people's habits are different. So our organizations did an amazing job of figuring out how to make those dollars stretch as they rebuilt and as they looked at what's the new normal especially in our region. And, people are used to staying at home more now. They're used to watching Netflix and finding other entertainment. So it took a while for audiences to return to all of the arts. And there's still, when do we buy tickets? Is there a cash flow? Do we buy that subscription series? So that, there's a lot of details in that. And I think it wasn't until this year, this cycle of sustaining impact, that the organizations really took a hard look at where are we now? How are they right-sizing for the future, and how are they investing in their own organization for the next few years?
Yeah, is that's a big philosophy in your approach to the whole grant-making process?
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're looking at the future and that organizations are setting up a plan to stay healthy.
Is it tough, though? I mean, you got to kind of be the adult in the room a little bit. Not that there's necessarily kids that are trying to get this money, but if there's a group that really believes in what they're doing, but maybe they don't have the best organization or the best infrastructure, is there a sense of, well, maybe they'll learn to grow, or you got to show me what you've got, and it's a yes or no kind of thing?
I think that's what puts ArtsWave. It separates us from other regular foundations. Not only are we just supporting the arts organizations, but we really create a connected community within those organizations. That's why we call it a cohort. We meet regularly. The CPOs, the chief professional officers, meet regularly to talk through those issues. So we don't have to make those decisions. We listen to the voice of the organization. We let them help each other. We help them when needed. And they have those conversations about where are we all? Where are all of the theater organizations working together and moving to? Where are all of the visual arts? So we don't have to be that mom and pop. We have some really great leaders in our organizations.
Yeah. So you had the Sustaining Impact Grant announcement. That was in May. When is the next campaign? Starts in the fall, in a couple of months?
It does. The campaign It's sort of ongoing. It's sort of ongoing, but our official time is from February to May. And so that will be the official 100th anniversary celebration. We have quite a few great things planned. We're doing 100 days of arts through that time. So every day around the city, there'll be an arts opportunity that we'll talk about. Some are free, some will be paid, some will already exist, some will be new. Leading up to that, we're the illuminating sponsor of Blink again this year.
That small little festival.
And we're very happy to support a new activity before that. It's called Cincy Arts Week. So Cincy Nice is really focusing on putting together a space and place for all of those artists in our community and all the artists coming in from Blink to have an experience together. So they're taking storefronts, venues, and creating a whole bunch of activities from Photo Focus, which will be about October 3rd that weekend, all the way through Blink. So I hope we're going to see a lot more activity and a lot more opportunity for everyone in our community at that time.
I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I think ArtsWave is one of the marquee organizations in this city. You guys do so much to fuel so much creativity that's here in the city, whether we're talking about theater, whether we're talking about music, the culinary arts. We didn't even really get into the way that food plays a role in things. It's all culture, it's all storytelling, and the idea that all this gets fueled by so many businesses and corporate partners in this city helps it with the specific intent of making things better to live around here. And I think that really, it makes Cincinnati such a unique place. And you've bounced around, you've seen how unique we are here.
Absolutely. I made the right choice, most definitely.
It's really tremendous. Ray Gargano is the Vice President of Community Impact for ArtsWave. The fundraising is ongoing, the need is ongoing. Check out ArtsWave's website for more.